Hello, everyone.
We're back.
We are back. My name is Ivan Vukpavlovich. I'm here with my very good friend, Russell Firestone. This is the taping of episode number 8 of the Sophisticated Shut-In, and my third with my friend Russell here. It is the 20th of April, 2020. We are still in the midst of the COVID-19 shutdown, the shelter-in-place order. And this episode will likely air on the 24th, Friday. Today's topic is essentially us trying to dispel a couple of myths that people unfamiliar with classic menswear may have about it. One is that classic menswear is uncomfortable. The other is that classic menswear and the wearing thereof requires that one abandon certain elements of individuality or identity. Both of these things are patently false. So before we get into it, starting with the issue of comfort in menswear, I'd like to briefly talk about what I'm wearing, and then Russell will talk about what he's wearing. Both of us have chosen to wear ensembles which speak directly to comfort from two different angles. I am wearing an ensemble which features 3 fully custom pieces. For those of you unaware, in tailored clothing, one will have the option of creating pieces of clothing which are cut to the exact specifications of the wearer and clothier, meaning not only do we get to choose fabrics and accoutrements and how they look, but indeed how they are cut based on body measurements, as well as projected garment measurements. So the jacket, the shirt, and the trouser that I'm wearing were created custom according to my fit specifications, my fabric specifications, and my style specifications. The jacket that I'm wearing is a cotton seersucker, and I say cotton because seersucker can actually be made of a variety of materials. Cotton is perhaps the most popular, but you can actually make a silk seersucker, you can make a wool seersucker, you can make a blend seersucker, and the word seersucker more pertains to the actual texture. What would you call it, Russell? Like the divoted texture, or the?
Well, yeah, it's seersucker. Real seersucker will pucker.
Pucker. Thank you. Exactly. And originally it was designed that way so that it wouldn't lay flat against your skin, but rather only a portion, percentage-wise, of the fabric would touch your skin, leaving a lot of it off of it, and therefore increasing circulation of air and making a more comfortable hot weather garment. This particular, what's that?
Interrupt you just real quick.
Please.
A lot of people may not know, but that puckering in seersucker is a good thing. I mean, sometimes
definitely.
If you're not familiar with seersucker, you can look at it and think it looks a little, maybe slightly rumpled or frumpy in some way, but it's the ingenuine seersucker that just is smooth. That's, you want to stay away from that.
Yes.
That real seersucker, that puckering is a good thing, and that's how it actually helps keep you cooler.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
That's a good thing to keep in mind if you're not familiar with seersucker.
True. So this particular jacket I designed to be very, very casual. Seersucker is by its design kind of casual, although my good friend and colleague Anthony over at Capra has a midnight blue seersucker tuxedo. So, you know, there is a range of garments you can make with it, but generally speaking, it is a casual fabric. I've chosen to do something slightly less casual with it in one way, which is make it a peak lapel garment. But everything else about it is very casual. Patch pockets. I got a ticket pocket right here. Things like that. Also, it's very hard to tell from a video, but this garment is completely and totally unstructured. Not only does it have zero padding in the shoulder, and you know, those construction elements are probably best left to a different episode where we address strictly those kinds of topics, but we can get into it a little bit. There's no padding and no canvassing whatsoever. It is a totally unstructured, it's essentially like wearing a second shirt. It's a very lightweight garment. So that's one piece. You may or may not remember, last episode, which will air tomorrow, I was wearing a white twill Brooks Brothers button-down collar shirt. Today I'm wearing something very similar. However, it is a custom shirt. I really love that style. You know, I love the button-down collar Brooks Brother shirt, much like Russell is wearing tonight. I have a couple of the Oxford cloth shirts from them, which is, you know, the true American button-down, totally unlined collar, very little, no structure, very soft. And I'll let Russell speak to that in a bit. But then their twill shirts, like I was wearing yesterday, they structure more like a dress shirt with a stiff cuff, stiff collar, or not stiff, but you know, it has structure. I wanted a linen shirt that I could wear during the summertime with very breezy summertime ensembles, such as this. And I felt that the white twill was way too formal for something like that. And the Oxford cloth, as comfortable as it is too heavy of a fabric for such ensembles. You know, to me, this is a very American South kind of look, whereas to me, Oxford cloth is a very, very New England kind of thing. And now, no one says that you can't mix and match the two, but I wanted to kind of keep it a little bit more Southern. And while I have a handful of shirts that I like to wear with this jacket, most of the other ones are short sleeved, and I wanted a long sleeved summer appropriate shirt. So I made this custom through one of our custom manufacturers. It is an Irish linen, very breathable, but essentially styled exactly like my Brooks Brothers white twill shirts, with the notable exception that it doesn't have a traditional placket, but a French one, and that's an accoutrement that we can get into some other time. I did choose to lightly fuse the collar to have a little bit of structure, as well as the cuffs. Usually, I believe that the structure of the collar should match that of the cuffs. However, I should say that if I were to make another one, as much as I like this one, I might try one without any fusing whatsoever. And then finally, my medium to light blue linen silk wool pants. I love these pants. They have a very high rise, which means the top of the waistband to the crotch seam is very long compared to your average contemporary pant length. They sit right at my navel, like the waistband covers my navel. And to that, the waistband is wide. A typical waistband is about 1.5 inches. This one is a full 2 inches, which accommodates the two buttons right across from each other. You will notice that there are no belt loops because I own a belt. I don't know where it is. I never wear one. I always opt for braces should I need them. And you know, you've got some side adjusters, on-seam pockets, things like that. Unlike most dress slacks, which I suppose you could say these are, but they're far more casual, these are completely unlined. Most dress slacks will have lining in the front down to about right below the knee. These, being a summertime pant, I kept the lining out so that they're super breezy, super breathable. So in this kind of ensemble, as layered as it is, a nice breeze comes along and I feel it. It comes right down to my skin. And it's very, very comfortable. Now, are you going to sweat when it's 115 degrees outside? Yes. But here's the thing. You're going to sweat anyway. So the choice is, do you sweat looking good or do you sweat looking like a slob? And then the final thing, just a linen cotton pocket square. This is my trusty Brooks Brothers knit square bottom tie, very casual. I got some blue socks on. I got some brown bit loafer shoes on. And then if I were outside, I'd have my trusty Panama hat on, protecting my face from the harsh, harsh sun. What are you in, Russell?
Well, I'm wearing a lot less than you this time.
Well, you're not wearing pants for one thing.
Well, yeah, for starters, yeah. But now I'm wearing, it's an Oxford cloth button-down shirt. It's pretty, this type of shirt, the reason I wore it, we're going to talk about comfort and clothing, is number one, for me personally, the Oxford cloth shirt, especially a button down, is truly one of the most iconic American styles. That if you're trying to pinpoint what is one thing in American style that really identifies it in the world as being American, it's truly an Oxford cloth button down shirt. And I think, you've mentioned it in your prior videos. Mm-hmm. It was introduced to America, of course, originally by Brooks Brothers. You can argue they don't make the best anymore. And you can definitely get better quality at other places, but Brooks Brothers still does make them. For me personally, Yvonne knows this about me. I'm very classic in my cuts and everything. I like a very full cut shirt. I don't like my clothes to be right up on me, clinging to me. I feel that having, plenty of room, number one, that's one of the beauties just in general we'll probably get more into at some point, talking about tailored clothing, is that the whole point of tailored clothing is make you look better than you just do naturally. Most people don't have, the perfect body. And the whole point of tailored clothing is to make you look better. Well, one thing about classic cuts for me personally is, number one, they're more comfortable, but also they're probably going to have a little bit more longevity in your wardrobe, because as you age or as your body changes, if it's a little bit fuller cut, it's not going to be a big deal. Versus if you have it tailored super tight, which is more of a contemporary look, you might have a little bit harder time holding on to that garment through time. Some things can be altered, but only to an extent. So a full cut shirt is definitely going to have longevity. And to me, it's more comfortable. Like you were saying, Yvonne, the structure I like in an Oxford cloth is unstructured.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning,
well, that's a classic. That's the classic Brooks Brothers approach.
Yeah. And what that basically just means is there's no lining whatsoever in the collar or in the cuffs. It's pretty soft.
That's right. And I should also say that, sorry, don't mean to cut you off, but unlike a true, business dress shirt, which is meant to look very, very crisp, and therefore if you get it laundered, they'll starch it, they'll get everything really, really prim and proper and flat, and it'll be pressed and all of that. The thing about Oxford cloth is that the more you wear it and wash it, the softer it becomes. And you're not, with an Oxford cloth shirt, you're not supposed to fight that. You're in fact supposed to embrace that. And in true American ivy style, in which the Oxford cloth button down is like the be all end all, right? In that style, it's okay if, the ends of your cuffs are a little frayed. It just means that you've had the shirt for a long time and you love it, and it's comfortable, and it's an old friend,
There's stories that way back when the ivy style was in its heyday, I've read things about how students, I think it may have been Princeton, I can't remember which school, or maybe it was Yale.
Oh, it was definitely Yale.
But basically, I think it was after the GI Bill was passed, and more students who maybe they weren't coming from wealthy families were able to get into the Ivy League schools. They would take brand new Oxford cloths, and they would try and rub some fraying into them to make it look like a shirt they'd been wearing for years.
That's right.
Because that was one of the signs of old money, which you'd been wearing your shirts for a long time because you'd had them for a long time.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, even though Brooks Brothers was one of the purveyors of that kind of Ivy style look, it was actually J. Press who really capitalized on it. And whereas Brooks Brothers sold some stuff that worked for Ivy style, J. Press actually built their entire identity around it. And it was their first store in New Haven, Connecticut, Yale, right? Where that style first blossomed, and then it moved on to Harvard and then Princeton. But, the Yaleys always looked at Princeton as much as they tried to dress well, they never really got it. Anyway, let's get on to the actual topic for tonight, and that is comfort. Now, I should say, first and foremost, if you judge comfort in clothing as the be-all arbiter, or, the be-all end-all of your clothing goals, and you just want to wear jogging shorts and a t-shirt, and that's all that's important to you, there's nothing I can say about classic style that's going to change your mind. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is being comfortable and looking good. Now, if you happen to be some kind of Adonis, right? If you look like a professional basketball player or soccer player and whatever, honestly, you're going to look good no matter what. You can throw on just about anything. We're talking about what Russell touched on before, which is one of the benefits of tailored clothing is that it actually makes you look better than you would without. And in that world where we are trying to achieve that, we have essentially the choices of fast fashion, haute couture, and classic style. And out of those, classic style is absolutely, in my mind, without any doubt whatsoever, going to be the most comfortable. And there are a few reasons for that, quite a few reasons. As I mentioned earlier, classic menswear allows for true custom creations. You can specify just about any element of the garment. Both Russell and I prefer a rise on the pant that is considerably higher than the current status quo. The rise dictates where on your waist that waistband of the trouser lies. I like it just below my navel, meaning like if it's touching the navel, that's fine. That's the natural waist. There are many benefits to this. Comfort, also in my mind, aesthetic, because it elongates the legs, makes your legs look longer. A bunch of things. You get to specify exactly how the jacket fits. I have very narrow shoulders for my overall physique. So in order to get a jacket to fit properly, or even a shirt for that matter, I really need to go custom. For example, if I buy an off-the-rack shirt, I can squeeze into a 15.5-inch collar, but I'm more comfortable in a 15 3/4, and 16 just looks awkward on me, right? So 15 3/4, nobody stateside makes a 15 3/4. You can't find it. You have to go custom. In Europe, you can actually find it, like because they use centimeters because they're normal. You know, a 39 centimeter collar will translate roughly to a 15.5-inch collar stateside. And a 41 translates roughly into a 16. So they have that 40 centimeter collar, which is about 15 3/4, which fits me like a glove. But for that, I need a European shirt maker, right? So with custom, I can really nail my collar. But that's not even the end of it. Off the rack, because of my narrow shoulder, any 15.5-inch collar will have the yoke, which is to say the distance from shoulder seam to shoulder seam. It's going to be down here because my shoulders are so narrow, right? So with custom, I can get that yoke exactly where I like it. I can get the overall fit exactly, my sleeve length, etc., so that I am perfectly comfortable no matter what. A trouser has so many different elements which can be altered. You know, as we grow, let's say, in the horizontal direction, a classically made trouser will have some give in the back seam that can be let out. Even an off-the-rack, high-quality trouser has 1.5 inches in there that can be let out and the waist increased. You know, so those are just like a couple of things in a myriad of vast sea of reasons why classic menswear will be more comfortable. Before I ramble on and on, I'd like to let Russell have the opportunity to add to anything that I've said or introduce his own musings, because I've got a lot of other stuff I want to say.
Well, yeah, that it's interesting how there's this misconception about classic style being uncomfortable, and I think a lot of that is due to the fact that most people don't truly have a good grasp of what classic style is, and because of that, they've been caught up a lot of times in the fashion world, or they've been caught up in just lower quality garments that are made probably with materials that are not going to be as comfortable as more natural.
That's true.
Fibers. And because of that, and then also, you know, if you're just buying off the rack stuff, a lot of times, depending on where you're buying it, you know, if the salesman doesn't know really what he's doing, he can put you in a garment that doesn't actually fit you all that well. And a lot of times people who feel like tailored clothing or classic style is uncomfortable, it's a lot of times due to the fact that the clothes actually aren't fitting them very well. That if your garments fit you well in tailored clothing and classic style, they are probably going to be the most comfortable garments you own. I mean, that's
for sure.
There's a lot of times whenever you dress in a classic way, it's almost like you're walking around in pajamas all day.
Absolutely. That's literally how I describe it to people. They're nicer pajamas.
That's right. And the more of an understanding a person starts to get about different fabrics and how different fabrics go with certain seasons better than others, and then also kind of understanding where you live and the typical climate that you're in, the more you start to gain an understanding of that, the even more comfortable it becomes. It's like that linen shirt with that seersucker jacket is perfect, because those are both warm weather fabrics. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the seersucker is obviously designed. I mean, it came out Haspel in New Orleans, I think, was the first to make
That's
seersucker
right.
into a suit.
Yes,
Up until then, it had been a very working class fabric.
that's right.
But they made it into a suit, and then again, I think it was the Ivy Leaguers who made it more acceptable as a business garment, even
Probably.
in the South.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always casual, but in the South, in the summertime, especially before air conditioning, that was the point of it. Was you had to dress, you wanted to dress in garments that were cool, and you needed to have an understanding of the fabrics. And seersucker is designed to let air flow through it, and the same with the linen. So all these things, the more you start to understand about them, and the more you're wearing the appropriate clothing that fits you well for the type of climate you're in, the more comfortable you're going to be. And there's little tricks that you can learn along the way too with dressing. Yvonne and I both use this one extensively. Number one is get away from belts. Like you said earlier, you may have one belt. I think I wear belts a little bit more often than you, but never with quote tailored clothing, like with my actual trousers, vest trousers. I will always wear braces. Now with jeans and khakis, I'll wear belts with those. But generally, with your actual wool trousers or linen trousers, whichever they may be, if you learn to wear braces with it, the beauty of it is you can have the waist sized up a little bit if you want. It doesn't have to fit you so tight because and it actually can look better in my opinion, because with a little bit of give in there, not only are you more comfortable because your pants aren't having to be constricted with a belt to be held up. They're hanging off your shoulders. That's the whole point, that the braces allow the trousers to hang. Therefore, you're not worried about them falling down if they're loose. So you're more comfortable. And on top of it, it just looks better. The drape of the fabric when it's hanging.
We could spend an entire episode on the benefits of braces over belts, I think. But yes.
I urge people to go back to, that's the whole point of going classic, is go to those high-rise trousers.
Oh, yeah.
You can
get them up to the neck.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons. It's not just, I find it to be more comfortable. I also find with a higher rise, your shirt will naturally stay tucked in.
Oh, yes. Especially with braces.
Exactly. And on top of it, it kind of harkens back more to a time when waistcoats or vests were typically worn just every day with your clothes. That if you wear a high-rise trouser, even if it's an odd trouser, if you decide to wear an odd vest with it, it's going to look better. Because
absolutely.
The waistcoat was when your trousers set, at least at your natural waist, because it covered that waist and you had an unbroken silhouette. It's a very elegant.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's exactly right. Which is another reason I don't like belts. One is absolutely comfort, like you mentioned. The other one is aesthetics. It's just a reinforcement of that horizontal line that cuts you in half, whereas you want that nice vertical flow, and even if you let someone see your braces, which you really aren't supposed to, but even if you take your jacket off, it's two vertical lines along the third that is your tie, just adding that lengthening, effect. Whereas a belt is just cutting you in half, both visually and physically, because with a belt, if you've got it on tight enough to where your pants aren't falling down when you're standing, when you sit down, your waist expands and you're really uncomfortable. Exactly. At the same time, if you've got it, a notch looser so that you're not dying when you're sitting, your pants are falling down when you're standing anyway. You got to be pulling them up. It's an imperfect contraption.
That's right.
Whereas braces just kill that. And also, sorry, I just wanted to touch on this. You mentioned that a high-waisted trouser will keep your shirt tucked in better. That's absolutely true, but it's also a function of that looser waistband, because when you've got that cinched in belt, right, and then you reach for something and your shirt comes out a little bit, it's not going to fall back in because the belt is constricting it. Whereas if you've got a slightly, I'm talking quarter inch, half inch looser waistband, you come back down, the shirt falls right back in.
That's right. Gravity's working with you.
That's right. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say that in the U.S., at least, it's almost unheard of to find an off-the-rack garment in trousers that have those side adjusters. And a lot of people probably are not.
Zanella makes them.
But if you have custom trousers made, I definitely urge people to give that a try and see if they like it, especially if you're somebody who you don't want to wear braces, but you're willing to possibly give up a belt. That's a good,
because the side adjusters actually have an elastic element to them, so that when you sit down, they actually let out a bit and you're still comfortable.
Right. And you can adjust the waistband to where they're not going to fall down. But it's a more elegant look than even wearing a belt.
Oh, for sure. No, the belts are the worst.
Yeah, in the classic style, number one, if you stay with it long enough, you're going to give up belts more than likely.
It's possible.
But also, you'll look back at pictures. If you try braces versus a belt, if you start looking back at pictures, you're always going to start to notice you look better when you're wearing braces.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it just breaks that silhouette.
And also just the drape of the trousers with braces versus belt, it's no contest,
No.
I should also say that, like whenever I have this conversation with people, and I have it quite a bit, honestly, because I'm a clothier, so I talk about clothing a lot with people. Usually the argument is, I don't like suits. I'm a t-shirt and jeans kind of guy. It's like, okay, that's fine. You can be whatever kind of guy you want to be. But if we're talking about comfort, if you're wearing t-shirt and jeans because of comfort, you're out of your mind. Jeans, to me, are the least comfortable pants ever made. As I mentioned in an earlier broadcast, I own a pair. They're in storage. I have no idea where they are. It's a pretty big storage space. I never wear them. Denim is the worst to me. Like you compare a tailored linen wool silk blend pant in the Texas heat to a pair of jeans, you will never convince me the jeans are more comfortable.
Oh, no. You can have custom jeans made, but even then, just the denim fabric in itself, it's never going to be able to compare with a more refined fabric.
For sure.
Always, to me, that's where I wear jeans, obviously, way more often than you do. But jeans, they have a purpose, and if you just need a garment that is very durable for some type of, work of some kind, jeans are great for that. But as far as just dressing for presentation and or comfort, they're not.
Essentially, if you are a animal trapper, a gold rush, entrepreneur, or a barber, all noble professions.
Oh, sure.
No, but jeans to me, and here's the thing, like in the last number of years, people have been like getting all these like stretch fabric denim jeans, to make them more comfortable and all of that. It's like, you're pissing into the wind, there's already comfortable clothing out there.
That's right. And one, I think it's just that for a lot of people who haven't gotten into classic style at all, that may be almost all they've ever worn. So it's just
That's true.
more or less clinging to what you know.
And I will also say that, a lot of people, including myself, I got into tailored clothing because of the aesthetic,
Sure.
because of the way it looks. And I made the classic mistake that most people do, especially if they're young. Uh, you go to like Macy's or J.C. Penney and you buy a $150 suit that's polyester. Even if you get it tailored to fit correctly, that suit's never going to be comfortable. They're pieces of crap,
Sure.
Uh, like we discussed in the last episode, one has to resign oneself to the fact that one has to put some money into this, and it is through that quality of fabric, construction, and fit that classic and tailored wear actually becomes very cost efficient. It's not cost efficient because it's a cheap initial outlay. A good pair of pants costs a couple of $100 at the very least.
Sure.
A nice dress shirt starts at $150. That's just the reality of it. But it will last you long enough to where it's actually a very cost efficient. And it's not just dollars, it's time. If you have to go out and buy a new pair of pants every 6 months, that's time you're spending away from your work, your family, your friends, right? So overall, there's no contest. But one thing I wanted to touch upon is we've been talking a lot about off the rack versus custom. Now, it should go without saying that in custom clothing, we get to specify every single dimension, every single accoutrement and fit. So, of course, that's going to be comfortable. And we also mentioned that off the rack clothing is very alterable. You can actually drop a crotch on a pant and increase its rise. You can let out just the seat of the pant if it's tight across your rear end, but the waist is good. We can address that. All sorts of things. Take in the waist, let out the waist. But then there's also this middle ground. There are a number of manufacturers who, for example, offer something called suit separates, where when you buy a suit, usually it's a nested jacket and pants, sometimes a vest. And depending on its drop, meaning the difference between the chest measurement of the jacket and the waist measurement of the pant, drop 6 and 7 being the most common, you get what you get.
Just for people who may not know what a drop is, what do you mean by that?
Well, essentially, for example, when you buy a suit that is a size 40 regular, what that means is that your chest measures in circumference 40 inches. And then that manufacturer decided that a person with a 40-inch chest should have a jacket this big and should fit them this way. Like that jacket, obviously the chest in circumference is larger than 40 inches. Maybe it's a little bit larger if it's a very slim fitting suit. Maybe it's a lot larger. It's a very, very classic fitting suit, or anything in between, right? So that is how jackets are sized. A drop is the difference between the jacket size and the trouser size in a nested suit. So for example, probably the most common drop is 6 inches. So a 40 regular suit will have a jacket intended for a 40-inch chest circumference. And then we take 6 off of that and arrive at 34. So it will have a trouser with a 34-inch waist. A lot of suits, especially trimmer fitting suits, will have a drop 7 So a 40-inch waist will come with a 33-inch, or I'm sorry, 40-inch chest will have a 33-inch trouser. And this is, you can find some manufacturers that will do a drop 5, especially in its larger sizes of an off-the-rack suit. And even drop 8 is common in some very fashion-forward, largely Italian, very slim fit kind of suits. But drop 6 is kind of right there being the standard. So some manufacturers actually make something called suit separates, where first of all, you aren't relegated to that drop sizing. And if I were to buy off the rack, I would need it because I wear a 38 size jacket because my chest measures at about 39 and a half inches, but my shoulders in proportion are so narrow that, a size 40 just looks preposterous, right? So I have to do a 38 jacket, but at a drop 6, that would give me a 32 pant. And let me tell you, that is not going to work for me. I need a 30. I can fit into some 33 pants. In fact, that's what I wear for my chinos. But for a dress pant with that higher rise, I need that 34. So
yeah, that's like with me. I mean, you know me. I like my trousers big.
Oh,
oh yeah.
In fact, we have actually. You like your trousers so big that you are technically a 34-inch waist. When buying trousers, you buy a 35 because you wear braces with them, so you like that extra room. But we have even, because you like such a full fit, we have even taken some 36 waist trousers and brought the waist in just so that you would have a big enough leg, because you really like that classic cut. That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. So what I was going to say, suit separates give you the benefit of really nailing that proportion between jacket and trouser. But even more importantly, a lot of these manufacturers will actually make different fits at different sizes. Like one manufacturer that we deal with, Jack Victor, which is a wonderful classic brand out of Canada. They make suit separates in not only different fabrics, but in different fits. They have their slim, they have their modern, and they have their classic fits. So you could say, ooh, I really like a nice trim fitting jacket at a size 38, right? But then I like a very classic full trouser, which is going to have a much higher rise and a fuller seat and all of that. And you can mix and match. So you can achieve both the silhouette and the comfort, the operative concept of the day, to give you both style and fit and comfort, And you will never find that from fast fashion or haute couture, because suit separates are aimed at the client who wants elegance, quality, and comfort. And that triptych you will not find in the world of high fashion or fast fashion for sure.
Well, and the same thing goes with where you're buying your clothes. If you're going to a true men's clothier like Capra and Cavelli, the people that work there are so much more knowledgeable and than just going to a standard department store to buy a suit.
For sure.
They'll work with you to kind of, help guide you and to help you figure out how you like your clothes to fit. I think that's one thing that people who are getting into it, that's another reason why they may find tailored clothing to be uncomfortable is
they don't know.
They don't know. And, you don't know enough about the clothing in the beginning to even know how it should fit. So you're completely relying on the salesperson to fit you the way they think it should fit. And I mean, everybody who goes on this journey of getting into classic style, everybody's made mistakes that as they evolve in this, realize more and more how they want everything to look and how they want it to fit. And that's the beauty of going to a real clothier. is that they can
That's
work
right.
with you and they can make those adjustments. It's not just a one size fits all. I mean, it's like with you and I mean, we have, slightly different fit preferences and how we like our clothes to fit. I mean, I like my clothes to fit full, and that's just my personal preference. It's not what current fashion dictates how I should look. But like Yvonne and I talk about all the time, I don't care about that. I mean, I know
No, no.
I want my clothes to fit. I want to be comfortable in them, and that's the key to this. And that if you work with an experienced clothier, they're going to take the time to help you get your clothes to fit the way you want them to, and that's where you're going to find them to be.
To expand on that very point, first of all, I've worked at larger places, and there are some people on the sales floor. If you go to a Nordstrom or a Neiman Marcus or whatnot, if you get lucky, you will get a very good clothier, but you have to get lucky. They do exist out there, absolutely. So I don't mean to, say it's like, don't go to those places. I mean, but you have to get the right person. Whereas at true specialty menswear stores, they will have a smaller staff, and they will all be, I mean, there are always exceptions, of course, but by and large, they will always be professionals, very knowledgeable. And like, for example, at Capra & Cavelli, we have 4 clothiers with 4 very, very different styles and very different preferences. But every single one of them will recognize what you need as a client, what you're looking for, and will not push our own tastes on the client. If the client is asking for opinions like, oh, I really like what you got going on, can you help me look more like that? Yeah, great. But it happens just as often that one of the other clothiers will walk by, and the client will be like, oh, wow, that's really cool. What is that? We can provide that just as easily. So it's about having that knowledge base and that range to really put the client into what that client needs and wants. It's not about pushing our own agenda.
That's right. Well, and then too, almost if you go into a store like Capra & Cavelli, I mean, just look at Capra & Cavelli. The clothier who's been there the longest has been there for how many years now?
Almost 25.
Almost 25. There you go. You're not going to find that.
No.
At department stores anymore. No. I mean, that was more common in the past to find people who make careers like that, but today it would be an extremely rare thing. Most people, it's just their current job that they're doing that they'll eventually move on from. But the people who work at men's clothing stores like Capra & Cavelli are truly interested in clothing. Yes. They understand it to a much greater degree than your average just salesperson. And it's because of that they can help you, develop your style, and your clothes, you're going to enjoy them a lot more, and you're buying a lot higher quality too. And that's key. That's key. And because nobody could do what you do and put up with all the little, what could be perceived as nitpicky variations in how people want their clothes to fit if they didn't truly care about clothes. You'd burn out on it so fast.
That's true. I don't know how we arrived at being a commercial for Capra & Cavelli. We should say that this is actually just a general statement about true specialty menswear stores. But
everybody, when they develop their style, just to expand on that, you're going to have clothes from all over the place. I mean, that's part of developing your style.
Mm-hmm. So as I suspected, we didn't really get to our second intended topic, and we've already been going for quite a while, which is this myth that some people have that in tailored clothing you're giving up an element of individuality in how you dress. And, I don't want to get too deep into it, but if you're comparing it to a guy wearing a t-shirt and jeans, it's just an absolutely preposterous statement to begin with, right? I don't know if we really need to get into it any deeper than that tonight. We can perhaps touch on it next time, which will be probably the middle of next week. Sometime we'll shoot it before then. Let's maybe shoot for the broadcast to be, let's see here. Let's say the broadcast will be Wednesday, the 29th. That gives us plenty of time to get our stuff together.
Okay.
The main topics will be based around the concept of effort in classic and tailored menswear, both in putting ensembles together and in the care of clothing, and how much effort either really entails and how it pays off, both as far as cost efficiency, time efficiency, and overall perception. So before we sign off, is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Firestone?
The only thing I'd say was going back to we'll get into it more about how classic style actually, it does allow you to express your individuality to a greater degree than a lot of other ways of dressing. It just opens your imagination, I guess is what I should say. I mean, the more you get into it, and the more your clothes become you, or an expression of you, the more purposeful your look can be. And that's the key in dressing, where you take pride in your presentation. You're trying to present a certain image, you can say to the world, or for a particular occasion, is that you always want your look to be purposeful. You put it together, that's what you want to present to the world. You never want to be wearing somebody else's look, so to speak. And that's what fashion is in a lot of ways. It's just you're wearing somebody else's idea of the way you're supposed to look. And because of that, you're not really saying much about yourself. And that's what classic style.
Well, you are actually saying quite a bit about yourself, but perhaps not a favorable thing.
Sure, but yeah, that's the point. And that's what you learn as you get into it, is that you can look any way you want to look. You can look like you're from a certain decade or whatever, but the key is that that's the purpose of the look. You are choosing to look that way. It's not just you put on the clothes and that's how you look, and now you're frustrated because that's not what you intended. And that's what people are seeing, and that as long as your look is purposeful, that's what matters.
No, that's absolutely right. And classic tailored menswear is a huge field, and options abound. Everything from full white tie and tails down to OCBDs, Oxford cloth button-down shirts, and seersucker, and so many things in between. It really gives you an enormous palette from which to assemble your own style and individuality, to where you are truly dressing how you want to dress, as opposed to how the creative director of Gucci in 2020 thinks you should.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. No, that's a conversation we actually had online, and so or offline. I'm sorry. So I'm very, very glad you brought that up. All right. At any rate, thank you once again for joining me, and thank you all for watching. This will be broadcast, as I said, on the evening of the 24th at 8 p.m. And then the next broadcast will be on the 29th in the evening at 8 p.m., where we discuss the effort required to get into this sort of stuff. Thank you very much.